All right, let's talk Hisuian Typhlosion. And just before we actually get into it, yes, that is an Alolan Ninetales in the bar of supports. I didn't put that there by mistake. That's actually there, but we'll touch on that later. Anyways, Hisuian Typhlosion is a Fire Ghost type Pokemon, which Fire Ghost is a great typing. While it is weak to Dark, Ghost, Rock, Water, and Ground, it resists Fairy, Poison, Fire, Steel, Ice, and Grass, while having a 4 times resistance to Bug and 2 immunities to Normal and Fighting. Now, you do have to put an asterisk next to the Normal because of Ursaluna Blood Moon, but Hisuian Typhlosion has something that Ursaluna Blood Moon is scared of, and that is a high-powered base 150 Eruption coming off of its okay special attack to hit Ursaluna in its not so okay special defense. Now, on that note, let's talk about Hisuian Typhlosion's stats. And as far as our stats go, we have 73 HP, 84 attack, 78 defense, 119 special attack, which honestly, it's not the best out there, but it's okay. I think it has the potential to do a lot of damage when combined with Eruption and a Choice Specs. We have 85 special defense and 95 speed. Now, Hisuian Typhlosion gets a little bit slower than regular Typhlosion. I believe regular Typhlosion is a base 100 speed Pokemon, whereas Hisuian Typhlosion drops 5 points in speed. So it's not the end of the world. It's not the fastest Pokemon out there, but it is far from the slowest Pokemon out there. I honestly think you're probably better off playing with either a Choice Scarf or a Tailwind over Trick Room for Hisuian Typhlosion, and a Choice Specs could also be really fun on this thing, since that will give you a 50% boost to your special attack. Now, as far as Hisuian Typhlosion's abilities go, this is one of the weird cases where you could make the point of just running your base ability of Blaze. So when your HP is dropped below a third or less, you do get a 50% boost to your fire type attacks. Now, that's not necessarily going to synergize the greatest with Eruption, but on a different set, it might actually do that. And the reason why I also say that you could make the case for Blaze on Hisuian Typhlosion is because Hisuian Typhlosion's other ability, its hidden ability, is Frisk. Now, Frisk can be good in closed sheeted formats, or specifically the ladder, since you don't know what item your opponent is holding, and that's what Frisk's whole shtick is. It identifies what the item is, but in a official tournament, it's kind of dead weight with an open team sheet format. So just keep that in mind whether you're going to use an ability patch on this thing or not, or if you're using the Typhlosion from the 7-star raid, because that would have the Frisk naturally. But anyways, point is, just consider what you want to do with your ability when you're building around Typhlosion. Maybe you want to have Frisk anyways. Maybe it's so that you just want to play with it on the ladder. That's totally okay. And honestly, if you're just playing with this thing on the ladder, Frisk is definitely the way to go, in my personal opinion, since it will reveal the item. So without further ado, let's talk about this first set. And we are keeping things simple here. We have 252 and 252, and we could just slap the 4 EVs into either our HP, our defense, or our special defense. We're going to throw it into our HP to bring us up to 149. And then we have 171 on our special attack, thanks to the max investment on our timid Typhlosion. And then with our speed, we have 161. Now, we can go for either the Choice Specs or the Choice Scarf here. With the Choice Specs, we are going to receive a 50% boost to that 171, and that is going to bring us up to 256, which that means if Typhlosion connects with you, it's going to do a lot. Now, in theory, what you could potentially do too is you could run the Terrifier to double your fire type stab, and then you can have the Eruption. You could also have a Torkoal here or a Cantonian Ninetales to bring in Drought. You could use a Prankster Sunny Day user as well to get a 50% boost to your fire type attacks on top of your natural stab or potential Terra Fire shenanigans, and double dip with the Choice Specs to really have an explosive fire type move right there. Now, if you're worried about taking damage because Eruption does get weaker the lower your HP gets, you could also go for Heat Wave instead. So Heat Wave is still a spread fire type attack, so you can do some decent damage with Heat Wave. Now, you are part ghost type, so it would be wrong to not bring up the point that you could go for Shadow Ball right here with your base 80 power. Typhlosion does have the signature move of Infernal Parade, but I think Infernal Parade might be a little bit better on a slightly different idea, and that's because it's naturally a base 60 power move, and this thing is basically Hex with a potential burn chance built into it. So if your opponent is already suffering from a status condition, Infernal Parade will then double in power to 120. Now, it does have a 30% chance to burn the targets as well, so if your opponent doesn't have a status condition and you want to fish for some burns, you could easily do that, but you're probably better off having something like maybe a Prankster Will-O-Wisp or Prankster Thunderwave user right next to Hisuian Typhlosion, and then that way you don't have to worry about the Covert Cloak just always negating the burn odds off of Infernal Parade. Now, hypothetically, this would benefit from a choice specs as well, since you're still getting that nice 50% modifier to your special attack stat with the specs. On a Scarf set, I would definitely not recommend running Infernal Parade. Now, Infernal Parade is a really fun move, don't get me wrong. I really loved it in my playthrough of Legends Arceus, but time and place. Anyways, outside of Shadow Ball and Heat Wave and Eruption, what I was also thinking was we could go for Extra Sensory, and then this way too we have some Psychic type coverage to hit some things that might be able to, just kind of thwart our plans a little bit. Or, we could just hit the odd Fighting type Pokemon for some super effective damage. Let's be honest, that's the main thing that the Extra Sensory is there for. It. Now, as far as some other special attacks Typhlosion gets, we have an okay-ish move pool, and by that I mean we have an okay variety for fire-type attacks. Outside of fire-type attacks, we do not have that much, but we could also go for Focus Blast, since it is a base 120 fighting-type attack. Now, Focus Blast does have the unfortunate weakness of that glaring 70 accuracy. Now, if you run something with Gravity instead to lower the evasion of everything on the field, great. Focus Blast can actually do some decent damage, but unfortunately, fighting type coverage aside, it's not really contributing much to the Hisuian Typhlosion. Now, if you wanted to run a non-fire or ghost Terra, you could go for Terra Blast, and then that way that gives you a coverage option based off of whatever your Terra type is. You could go for Terra Grass if you wanted to, or you could go for maybe, say, Terra Fighting. You could go for the Terra Fighting, ironically enough, for the memes, and not only that, but to have actual consistent fighting type damage if you want to hit rock type Pokemon, especially Garganacl, since Garganacl's Purifying Salt does weaken the power of ghost type moves. So you could deal with stuff like that. You could also go Terra Fairy, then that way too you have a super effective means of hitting dark types, which would resist your Shadow Ball, and depending on the dark type, you might have some trouble with fire type attacks. And yes, I'm looking at you specifically, Incineroar. Yes, that is why we are potentially going for the Terra Fairy. Nor, Terra Ground would probably be better for super effective damage, or the Terra Fighting. But anyways, that's beside the point. The main point is some dark type Pokemon might not really care about the fire type attack depending on their secondary typing. So just some food for thought. Now, as far as what Smogon deems usually useless, yes, Solar Beam is there. Solar Beam does do a lot of damage, but unless you're playing on a Sun team, you're taking 2 turns to charge, or you're taking a turn to charge and then a second turn to actually fire. So, yeah, it's going to be a little bit of dead weight. Terra Grass, Terra Blast might be a little bit better if you're running the spec set, and then that way you don't have to worry about the likes of, say, Pelipper or Tyranitar coming in and overriding your Sun right there. So that is mainly my main thoughts on a choice specs or choice scarfed set. Now, I will point out what the modifier is for the choice scarf. So with the 50% boost to your speed right here, 161 times 50%, that works out to 241, which means Typhlosion is going to be relatively fast with that choice scarf. So that is a fairly respectable speed to be able to hit things with. So if you don't necessarily want to go for the raw damage, or if you're planning on going for the sunny day or drought setters, that could be a really nice thing for Typhlosion to maybe consider running the choice scarf instead, so that you can get a speed boost, and then that way too you have some raw firepower. Now, the next set that I was thinking about here is an Infernal Parade set. So this one is a little bit interesting because Typhlosion is not really the bulkiest Pokemon out there, but it does get access to Calm Mind. Now here we go. Calm Mind can raise our special attack and our special defense one stage each. Now we have the potential to get a little bit bulkier on the specially defensive side. Now, as far as our item goes, that can be a little bit of a toss-up. If we wanted to, we could go for a Citrus Berry, and then this way too, we can get a little bit of HP back. If we wanted a Life Orb for a little bit more consistent damage, we have that. Or what we could even do is run a Grassy Seed to give us a +1 defense. I don't know if you guys had seen it or not, but both my Dawnwings, Necrozma, and Lunala teams, or rather the second of my Dawnwings teams and my Lunala, I ran Grassy Seed on both of those with Calm Mind and a Rillaboom, and man, that was a very good time. So I think you can maybe recreate something with the Grassy Seed with Hisuian Typhlosion. And the other thing too is because you're part Ghost, you are immune to Fake Out. Now, you will have to be careful with opposing Incineroar and Rillabooms because they both get knockoff, and Incineroar is naturally a dark type to begin with. But if you have a Rillaboom next to your Typhlosion, you don't really have to worry about Fake Out if you make the call wrong and you Fake Out the wrong target, or maybe your speed EVs are just a little bit different. Like maybe you're running a Rillaboom with slower, with a slower build, and your opponent just has max speed Incineroar and they outspeed you. Well, that could be a little bit of a problem, but at least you're immune to the Fake Out. Now, they could just click a dark type move into you, but that's beside the point. Point is, if you're maybe playing, say, Rillaboom, Incineroar, or Rillaboom against Incineroar, and you're a slower Rillaboom, your opponent might be able to Fake Out your Rillaboom instead. Or if you're playing Incineroar and your opponent has a Rillaboom, you might be able to fake them out if they're slower and you're running speed investment on that. You could get the Fake Out off, and then have Typhlosion go for Calm Mind. Or if your opponent realizes that, or doesn't realize your Hisuian Typhlosion fakes your regular Typhlosion, they might try to Fake Out you. You could get that Calm Mind off, and the Ghost typing will protect you from the Fake Out. That's the main point I'm trying to get out of me. You don't have to worry about Fake Out. So you get the Calm Mind off, you can go for the Heat Wave, you can go for the Infernal Parades. Technically, you could go for Will-O-Wisp, but I have the two damaging options here because I think Protect is a really good idea to have to help preserve yourself, and then Heat Wave will be able to hit normal types, which will be able to be immune to Ghost types, and you don't really want to wall yourself out against a singular particular type. So I like the idea of having the double coverage options. Now, despite what I just said about Protect, hypothetically speaking, you could run the Will-O-Wisp. You could. And then that way too, if you want to live on the edge, you could have that. You could go Will-O-Wisp, Calm Mind, and then that way you have a means of reducing physical damage from physical attackers, so long as they're not guts. And then you double Infernal Parade's power with the status condition. Now, I think a Grimmsnarl could be a good partner too, since you could have Prankster Thunderwave there instead. So that's just some food for thought. Now, what you could do instead of Heat Wave is you could run Lava Plume. Lava Plume has a 30% chance to burn anything that gets hit by it, and not only is it a spread move, it also hits your partner. So you could have some interesting synergy right there, since you don't have to worry about redirection. Maybe you bring out, say, like a Dachshbun, where Dachshbun's well-baked body gives it a fire immunity while also raising its defense 2 stages. Just saying. I did do that in Reg F with regular Typhlosion, so you could hypothetically run Lava Plume to fish for burns instead of Heat Wave, since you do have a higher % chance to burn the targets, and then that way Infernal Parade just goes up in power. But let's talk about the EV spread. So as far as the EV spread goes, I have 228 EVs into the HP to bring Typhlosion up to 177. 76 EVs into the physical defense brings us up to the 108. If we're running a Grassy Seed on that, we're also getting a 50% boost, so that's an extra 54 points right there. So you are looking at 162 with a Grassy Seed. With our nature, we have a modest nature on this, so that we have 176 after we factor in the 164 EVs and the modest nature. So we're going to start getting really scary with a Calm Mind. We have 36 EVs into the special defense to bring us up to 110. And with that +1, you're getting 55 points right there into your special defense. And then just to make sure the EVs don't get wasted, we're just putting the remaining point into our speed to bring us up to 116. So that's what I was thinking for an Infernal Parade set. So let's talk about some potential partners. So like I mentioned about Drought Setters, we have Torkoal and Ninetales. Both of these Pokemon get Helping Hand. If you wanted to, you could play to a Trick Room matchup as well with Torkoal. Maybe you have, like, say, an Indeedee with Typhlosion and Torkoal, and maybe Typhlosion is the Eruption attacker for outside of Trick Room, and Torkoal is the Eruption attacker for inside of Trick Room. You could have something like that. Torkoal also gets Yawn, which is a great support move as well. And since Electric Terrain is going to be going down in usage, we might see Yawn go up in usage, and then that way too, that also makes our opponents have a painful choice as to whether they want to switch out their Pokemon or stay in, fall asleep, and then just risk the sleep turn. So that could be relatively nice. Another thing too about Torkoal is Torkoal gets Clear Smog, which will remove stat boosts and stat drops. So if you're not playing Terra Steel Dondozo or playing against Terra Steel Dondozo, you can remove those stats right there with the Torkoal, especially if you have Indeedee support. So that could be nice. And you know what the nice synergy about Clear Smog and Fire is? Steel might resist or might be immune to poison, but it does not appreciate taking a fire type attack. So there is that. And another thing with Torkoal too is it does have Body Press. So Body Press Torkoal could be funny because, 140 defense right there. Just saying, that could do a lot of potential damage. As far as Ninetales goes, Ninetales is a faster alternative to Torkoal as far as Drought Setters go. And like Torkoal, you do have the Helping Hand. Hypothetically, you could try to soften some things up for Typhlosion by going for Fake Tears with the Ninetales. Ninetales is a base 100 speed Pokemon, so you are faster than Hisuian Typhlosion. You get the Fake Tears off, you lower something special defense 2 stages. Typhlosion comes in, just winds up and knocks them right out of the park there with that big special attack. So that could be nice. Or if you wanted to try to play a little bit of supportive, you could also go for Will-O-Wisp. Like, this isn't a Ninetales spread by any means. This is just some useful tools to just keep in mind. So you could potentially have Will-O-Wisp to burn physical attackers, and if you're playing Infernal Parade on Hisuian Typhlosion, that could be nice too. And then that way you double your Infernal Parade's power. So there is that. Now, why we have Alolan Ninetales is Typhlosion might not necessarily want to play on a Sun team. Like, hear me out. Like, maybe you want to play a Snow team and you need something to deal with Steel types. Typhlosion might be your Pokemon. So if you have the Alolan Ninetales here, you could go for, like, say, a Slush Rush abuser like, say, Cetitan or Alolan Sandslash. Ninetales can set the Aurora Veil up, and then maybe if your opponent thinks they're being clever with Fire type or Steel type Pokemon, you bring in the Typhlosion. Typhlosion might struggle a little bit against opposing Fire types, but it can do a lot of damage to Steel type Pokemon. And, maybe what you might do is you might run Terra Ground, Hisuian Typhlosion with Terra Blast. Your opponent brings in that Fire type, you pop Terra Ground on your Typhlosion, you hit him with a Ground type Terra Blast, and bam. That could be nice. Or, you just get bulky with Aurora Veil and then let Typhlosion do what Typhlosion wants to do, and that's click Eruption. So there is that. You could also have some speed control with Ninetales with the Icy Wind. You can use Helping Hand to boost up Typhlosion's damage output. You could have the Blizzard. And, honestly, if you have the Slush Rush up on the field, maybe Cetitan could be your answer to some things that Typhlosion doesn't necessarily like. Maybe you could just destroy terrain for Rillaboom so that they now have to hope they can survive taking your Eruption, and then they can't weaken you with a Grassy Glide. So Ice Spinner could be nice. You could also destroy Psychic Terrain to destroy priority move, like that anti-priority moves right there. High Horsepower could be nice on Cetitan. Liquidation could hit Fire types, especially if you have a non-Ice type Terra. So that was kind of what I was thinking for Hisuian Typhlosion. I was thinking we could go with either a choice item set or this weird, abominable Calm Mind EV spread. I didn't throw this into the calculator, by the way. If you are looking at this, maybe run calcs before you actually build it. I'm certainly going to be doing that before I actually try Hisuian Typhlosion out on the ladder once Reg H starts. I've tried it out before in the past. I was kind of a little bit on the fence on it, but when I tried it out in the past, it was max speed, max special attack on a timid nature. So I wouldn't be opposed to trying some kind of interesting or different, to put it nicely, as far as an EV spread goes. So anyways, that's what I was kind of thinking there as far as the spreads go. And then you could either play this on a Sun team or you could use it on another Weather team to try to deal with some Pokemon that might get in the way of that archetype. So it might not necessarily be the star of the team, but it might be that niche pick that helps get around certain particular matchups. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed listening to me ramble about Hisuian Typhlosion. Be sure to let me know what you think of this thing down in the comments below, and I will see you next time.